Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Ready, Aim, and Sell. And this is our session two, which is the sell portion. And I'm going to get us lined up with our presentation here momentarily and get this up. So, welcome back. And for those that are joining for the first time, welcome. And we'll make sure we follow up and get an opportunity that you could see the ready session. We'll get into the aim portion here. What makes this session unique is we're using the model of the funnel and looking at filling in the top of the funnel. In here, this is going to be a combination of some marketing actions and some sales actions that we're going to get into specifically. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what the agenda has. We're going to give a very modest review of the Ready session because that gave us the foundation of the tools that we need to be aware of. And then today is the first part that we're going to get into, like actually working the tool. What are the components of it? Well, what that means is looking at the stages one, two, and three, looking at the sales funnel process and that roadmap, looking at some of the targeting and non-tech talk, and then getting into some business focused language that earns the trust and authority. So and then at the end, we'll just give a general reminder on the call to action that we'll meet again next Wednesday on December 17th at the same time that we met today. And from there, we'll start getting into the session. And I just want to know if there were any questions or any experiences, any concerns that anybody want to address before we get into the content. I'd like to open up the floor before I get into some more of the review. And I'll leave it to my trusty friend here, Jeremy, to look for any hands raised or any gestures on the screen since I'm in presentation mode.
No?
All right. So, just as a modest reminder here, what we're trying to do is make sure that we put together a strategy, equip, and deploy. And just as like this is what our mantra is. We're not trying to react to threats. We're not trying to react. We want to anticipate and come up with a strategy. And being intentional about your sales process is no different than making sure we mitigate against cyber breaches, cyber threats. And as a quick review, what we did last week is we looked at the seven-stage funnel process, the green sheet, and we were looking at our CRM as a intentional process. There were some, very honest and candid people that shared that they're not using a CRM, they're using spreadsheets, or they're looking for a process to better organize their thoughts and ideas as well as gain the skills. And to the right here, you could see this is the funnel sales process that we followed. So let's get into the content of the aim portion here. And what we're looking at is targeting three um, traps, challenges, problems, or issues that we have as business owners trying to intentionally grow our business to be profitable,
What?
predictable.
They're not seeing your screen.
They're not seeing my
Hold
screen.
hold on. Can you guys see the screen? Yeah, nobody sees your screen. There you go. Yeah, I can do it.
My apologies. Thank you for the feedback on here. So, real quickly, here's where we're starting off. Here's our agenda. We're going to do the ready review. We'll talk about what we're going to cover in the ready aim. This is the aim session. And then again, give a general reminder for next week that we'll get together for our sell. Where we're focused in on here with our equip and deploy is leveraging the tools that we talked about last week or the components, which is understanding the roadmap of sales with a seven-stage funnel, understanding how to be disciplined and strategic with a green sheet, a pre-sales prep, and then how do we leverage technology with a CRM to help drive the activity, capture it, give it focus, give it intention, and move forward. On this particular slide here, this is where we're going to address the three greatest challenges that are most frequent that we hear from our MSBs, and quite genuinely are very common in a lot of the small, medium-sized businesses that are in the process of doing the business, but they want to grow and they want to grow with intention. And the area that we're going to cover in the next couple of slides is the intention or the inconsistent lead flow. How do we become intentional with a process with some outbound marketing and inbound selling? The other part that came up in our last conversation is how do we challenge ourselves to speak more business and less tech when appropriate, and focus more on the needs of the business owner about impact and not as much technical. And then, you know, come up with an intentional plan to structure the selling process. And in the sales funnel, we're going to cover these three stages in the AIM area. In the first session, we talked about defining who your persona is. Who is your ideal customer profile? Who are the people that we're talking to? Now that we've got that identified, now it's a matter of prospecting and finding many others that are out there. And prospecting are simply what we see as opportunities. The stage two, the qualification, is this is where we talk to them and realize where they are in the process. Is it worth our time to continue to address our resources in that direction, or do we pivot? And then the third stage is that needs assessment. That's when you get in there and you have that discussion and understand where they are and what they need as you start to get ready for your next stages, which is defining the scope and presenting solutions. And the idea behind this is to give it more clarity and predictability of where you are. And quite genuinely, what I'll share with you is these next two stages are quite frankly the most challenging. They're either the most challenging because A, it's that discipline or the protection of your time to allocate to this activity, or B, it's having that activity, but where and how do you prioritize correctly with those opportunities or prospects that you are identifying and then take them through the process. So I just want to share with you, like, I know that this is the hardest part. This is why organizations have sales development representatives or people out there on the front line knocking on doors and creating those opportunities that are out there. What we're going to do now is try to give a little bit more context behind it and try to make it easier for you, because once you have a plan in place, then the apprehension goes away. So let's address on how we're going to conquer the funnel, the top of the funnel here, which is that prospect and qualifying. Again, the stage one, it's that prospecting, identifying that target and who is that ideal. All of you have a unique value proposition that you bring to the table, a certain strength. And it's either defined with the capabilities that you have that differentiate yourself, or maybe you have gotten yourself involved in, let's say, a business vertical, a segment, whether it be DoD contractors or healthcare providers. Maybe it's in banking or finance, car dealers, or maybe it's the medical practices in your area. But there's some area that you have a good number of redundant type customers that you're defining yourself to be an expert because you can anticipate what their needs are. Um, the next area again is that qualifying, and I want to prepare you. The next couple of slides are going to be an eye chart, and I did this with intention because I wanted to make sure that if you went back and reviewed the deck, or if you're taking screenshots, you had some relevant content that you could take back with you and review at your pace. So the next area is when you're having that qualifying and you're screening out. So imagine you've got 200 prospects that you've met. You only have so much time in a year to manage so many prospects or so many clients. And you're really looking for that magic number. Maybe your number is, 20, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 10. It all depends on the size, scope of the project, but how do you identify that? And when we do that, we look at this acronym NBAT, NBAT, which helps you determine based on the prospect's need, budget, authority, and timeline. And the action here is we don't want to waste time on targets that can't be secured. We want to quickly qualify them and be ruthless with our time and realize we don't need to go back to them just yet. We're going to put them back in the funnel and find another passive way to stay in front of them. But we're just going to not focus our energy if they're not willing to have a more qualifying conversation and allow you to do an assessment or their timing is off. And then the final connection I want to share with you is you really need to consider, if you don't have one now, a CRM system that could do the marketing, managing, and tracking. This is where it allows this activity to be more managed automatically and not tie up a lot of your valuable either consulting time or selling time or your client engagement time that's out there. And so these are the three areas that we're going to cover on here. And what we'll do now is get into this next area, which is prospecting. And if you'd like, feel free to chime in. But when we look at a prospect, it is defining, are you talking to someone of high influence who can help make the decision? If we're dealing with a small business owner, are we talking to the owner? Or if it's a lean organization, are we talking the CEO or president? And if not, are we talking to someone that has high influence, like an operations manager, or maybe someone that is a VP of sales that is responsible for business growth, but they're being impeded for whatever area that they're not protected, or the chief financial officer, the chief technical officer, and the name or the title doesn't have to be exact, but what has to be is that that they have a level of influence that they could take action there. And for example, here, this is just an example, small, medium-sized business, maybe typically, 15 to 75. Maybe you're looking at something that's more of like 75 to 100. But is there a category that's your sweet spot that you're looking at to get after it? And again, this is just an example. And when you're meeting with them, are they experiencing or planning for growth? Are they experiencing a pain point, or are they looking to grow? And this is where I call either trouble or growth mode. And then you being the expert in this area, you probably can anticipate what are the known pain points based on industry, location, affiliation. And you could tell based on that. So, for example, a lot of our affiliates that, and partners that we work with in the DoD contractor space, the trigger in the market is, the DoD, they have a new requirement. HIPAA in healthcare, there are constant requirements that are ever so changing to protect patient healthcare as well as healthcare provider information. And then the other part here is leveraging your credibility or commonality within your network, existing customer base, or what brand you've established in your area. And you want to work with those people that are viewing technology as a critical enabler for their business and not so much a cost center, but they realize this is a strategic tool. And these are just some examples. You may have some of your own. And what I would love to do is just pause and just find out, is there anything I did not mention that is a key qualifier for you to identify, is that person a prospect or not? You could put it in the chat, or you can uh, just come off mute. Okay. Feel free to jump in later on. We'll keep the content moving. And I see you came off mute.
I can't hear.
I don't think any of us could hear. And all right, we'll look for the chat maybe. All right. So some areas I like to also discuss is that growth or trouble mode. And this is interesting because we come across those folks that are experiencing one or the other. Either they're rapidly planning for an expansion, or in the trouble mode, they recently had a painful IT incident. Maybe there was a breach, there was downtime, and they're frustrated, or they're frustrated with the current vendor or their IT limitations. And they're openly discussing what their challenges are and our opportunities. And they're asking questions about efficiency, security, or future planning. This is pretty obvious to you that you know you've got someone who's motivated. If they don't fall into either category, what I would often say is that's where we call even keel. And they're not in trouble, they're not in growth. Maybe they're just trying to learn, or you caught them at a time they're willing to engage. But there is an opportunity to build a relationship with them and keep them in your CRM, your client relation management tool, to know like maybe you keep them informed on an interval basis. And when they are in trouble or growth mode, you could use that time to build brand trust and advance them later on.
Hey, Mike. Ann was able to type on here. She said she had some earbud issues. But she had her question was most of my clients lately have just had bad service from MSPs, or they've gotten big or bought and now not delivering. So the MSP may have been gotten too big or bought out, but they're not delivering good service apparently.
No, that's excellent. That's an excellent trigger out there. Very good. And thank you for sharing that one. That is one that I'll have to put that on the list there for future. But yeah, change in service. The current vendor has either been bought over, new leadership, and they're not delivering the customer experience. Excellent. Thank you so much again. I appreciate the engagement. And what we'll do now is we'll advance to the next slide, which is the qualifying. And I do want to share with you that this is going to be a bit of an eye chart. It's intentional, but what we're going to do is break down the acronym of the NBAT and give you some examples, and then hopefully create some opportunities to engage on what you may add on or may be pertinent to your business and experiences that you've had. So, in the second stage, which is qualifying, this is where what we call at Lionfish screening the mission, really understanding what is what and which is important and where to prioritize. And I'd like to go into this a little bit deeper. And what I'll do is go from kind of like left to right on the top, and then go left to right on the bottom. And as we keep capture each one, love to hear any input that you may have. But the one is the defined need. What is the compelling pain point or urgency that's driving it? There were many examples I put down, but for the sake of brevity on the slide, I just kind of kept it to two. But I know this list could be much longer or even redundant, uh, with different words kind of driving the same meaning here. But in the need, is there clearly articulated a business problem that IT can solve? For example, is it downtime costing the clients? Are they worried about ransomware? Maybe the team can't collaborate effectively. You know, it's impeding their productivity. Is there a urgency driving like an external factor, a compliance deadline? Is there rapid growth? Is there a competitor innovation that they need to now have to play a different angle and a strategy in order for them to compete? And then the other one is maybe there was a recent negative event. And again, is it a growth or is it a trouble mode? But what is the need and can they articulate it? And you've heard me say this in the last session for those that have participated, or if you get a chance to see the recording, but I often talk about, is there a business result? Is there something here that they could clearly articulate that they stated is, you know what, Mike? Hey, um, we need to accomplish this in this amount of time, and this is the revenue or dollar or head count. But that is a clear business result that they need to look after in order to see success in resolving what they want to fix or achieving what they want to accomplish. Elizabeth, I see your hand raised. Feel free to call it out.
Well, I'm just wondering because a lot of times people don't even realize that this is could be a business help. All they're looking at is, oh my gosh, I've got this other thing that's going to cost me money. Is there a way to help direct the conversation or ask questions that can open that up?
Can you repeat that again?
How do I ask the questions to get those answers? Because a lot of times all people are thinking is, oh my gosh, I have to pay somebody else to do something else. How do I help get them to the here's the business need? They may not even know.
They may not, but usually where I default into that area is, and we may get into it a little bit further as we get into some green sheet discussion, but it's asking those questions that what do you want to fix, avoid, or accomplish? And then designing your questions that could be confirmatory in nature, just to align that you are in the right or align with what your ideal customer profile and who you're prospecting and what the events are that they're being challenged with. And then looking for new information from them, and then getting some attitudinal read feedback from them as well. But how you get it is you have to lead with questions. And the other opportunity is when you have experience with other clients with a similar issue, I would say be empathetic with what I call the feel, felt, found uh, approach. You acknowledge what their pain point is and what they've experienced, and you know how they feel because you had that. You felt that same way, or know other customers that felt the same way because they were in a very similar situation. And what they found is that when they resolved it, they were able to mitigate or resolve the issue. And then here was the incredible growth or gain that they were able to get after it based on that. And really, I find that feel, felt, found to be the most empathetic and articulate way to just ease someone forward. And I hope that gives a good example of how you could help your client articulate what their thoughts are, because sometimes they're so caught in the moment that they just need someone outside of them to help them articulate it.
I have a question, Mike. So when selling cybersecurity or compliance solution, sometimes these companies don't realize they need it until after a breach. How can we balance the qualifying real urgency versus creating awareness?
Well, the urgency, what I would propose is that if they're in an industry, if you have other third-party proof sources, meaning articles, publications that shows other companies in a similar space that either had a breach or were non-compliant and showed what was the impact to their business, did it shut them down? Did it slow them down? What was their cost to it? That often in times helps explain it better or create that situation. What I'm finding from that in your question, Jeremy, is you have someone who's in an even keel mode. They're not in a growth or they're not in a trouble mode because they're probably not aware
Mhm.
of the situation. And where I would recommend is you use a technique called spin, which is you create or share other situations that were very similar that they're in,
Mhm.
and some problems that are very common in that space. And you have that proof source, and then and the impact, which is you share what that cost them, and many of you could articulate this part far better than I, since this is your everyday world, in the trenches dealing with the customers and clients and being in the industries. But there is some devastating fines. There is some devastating brand detriment when someone is breached, and it's grossly compromising. And I could tell you when we receive those phone calls that people that are in a trouble mode, it's sometimes you just wish you had that. And then the other part is have those testimonials of those areas that you've been successful, and have those ready to share with those folks and say, hey, other people that have been in this situation, take a look and see what they've done and how we were able to help them out. And we really, and be empathetic. I mean, you're genuinely on a mission to help people. solve issues before they become real big problems. It's if they ignore the maintenance, it could really come back and hurt them. And then the other part is if it, maybe it was just unintentional and they did everything they could, but they need a way out. Share with them and show them the path. But again, testimonials, being a subject matter expert in that industry, understanding what the pain points and the implications are that's cost people time, money, brand awareness, and the impact it's had on their clients and to grow.
So I had a follow-up. I don't see anybody else with a question, but I'll follow up was what are the biggest mistakes that you see MSPs make when they try to uncover these compelling pain points? Do prospects always articulate their pain properly and clearly, or do we need to dig deeper, and how do we go about that?
Gosh, I would categorize that question to be that's human nature, right? If you're a natural problem solver or a fixer, sometimes you jump right into the solution. And what I would just, request that you do is slow down and go at the cadence of your audience and your client and find out where they are and where they recognize where their current situation is, and then walk them down that path of where they're at. So I find it's either A, they jump into technical jargon and yet they really haven't been able to understand or been able to communicate what is the business impact and be able to relate. So it may be too much technical talk, or B, it may be not asking the right questions to make sure that the customer is really understanding and feeling the pain. And that's where I love asking questions and helping them come to that epiphany, because sometimes they don't recognize it. Some people are just accustomed to living with a situation the way it is because it hasn't interrupted their day-to-day business yet. Did that help, Jeremy?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Awesome. Great question.
I don't know I'm here with you.
So right now, we covered the need, and that's compelling pain points and urgency, really understanding where they are. Are they in that trouble or growth mode? The next area is, are you talking to the right person? Do they have the right authority? Are they decision makers or influencers of high influence? And I say this because as a career professional salesperson, I get happy years. And what the pitfall that I fell into and some of my colleagues is, if you have someone who's willing to give you time and attention, you think you're making it or going somewhere, but then you didn't realize what is their level of influence that could help, or are they really helping you coach? So I would make sure that you understand and ask some of the questions, and it may be a bit awkward, but it can't hurt to ask, like, how do decisions get made, and what role do you play in this? Is there a clear decision-making process? How do you go about it? For those that work with larger clients and larger organizations, they have a very regimented and articulate and detailed acquisition process. Well, can I understand it? Or if they don't know or they're not sure, just ask them how, what was the latest purchase that you made or the latest service that you've done, and ask the question, what came about? How did you do that? How did you make your decision? And who was involved in it? Fantastic. And who are some of the stakeholders that were impacted, and what role did they have in gathering information, evaluating the decision, and then of course coming to the final understanding of where you were going, and then what would happen after you made the decision, who was involved. So let's get to the second line here to the left, which is budget. And it's, do they have the financial capacity and willingness to invest? Do they have the money now, and are they ready to spend? It's a very simple but yet hard question to ask, right? Because you feel like you don't want to enter negotiation, and you want to make sure they understand the value, and you want to make sure they understand the value of IT before they go forward. I'm sure many of you have come across that client that was naive and thought they could do it themselves or find a low cost alternative, and not realizing they just made the problem bigger. And then you have those that are strategic and more aware, knowledgeable, and they're willing to invest. But do they have the budget, and are they willing to invest? Or is there a budget cycle that they have? And then you could go back to them and grow with that customer if they're an existing client, Or maybe you could just make sure you're right in the right window when you're qualifying. Like, hey, these people do their budgeting in April, they spend their money in October, they implement in January, and then you come up with a cadence, not only what their need is and who you need to talk to, but you know when the funds are available. And this may just simply be asking on, have they allocated the funds for this type of solution? Are they willing to consider it? And are they asking about pricing models, payment plans, or an ROI? Do they understand the value of solving the problem in financial terms? They understand that they can't afford not to resolve it. They can't afford another week of downtime, and they understand that there is a significant cost in their breach, and it's much higher than their service that you're offering. And all of you are professional and work very hard to get your certifications, get your training, and you should be rewarded appropriately for what the market's willing to bear. And I think in a frank and fear-free manner, you're allowed to have these conversations with people, and it's also part of your qualifying. Some people may be ideal customers or client opportunities that you move forward, and quite frankly, some people don't deserve your time just yet. The next part is that timeline. If they define the urgency and implementation window, how do they manage these type of projects? When do they usually implement them? Are there any other known blockers, dependencies, or competing priorities that might interfere with your timeline for them to execute? So based on these, four buckets of questions, I would love to open it up again and just see if there's an area that you feel that we might have missed in our framework, or maybe a question in any one of these buckets of need, budget, authority, or timeline that you find wasn't mentioned or very effective that works for you. So now we're into the third stage, which is discovery. It comes down to three, very basic components. Probing for information, gathering the information, and then capturing it so you could build upon it. So we covered the first two stages, which is we've identified what is our ideal customer profile and who those prospects out there that we feel that we know that we've been successful with, or we could be successful helping them. And we have a track record, or we're establishing a track record. The next area is we're qualifying, and we're looking at those areas of, what's their time, authority, budget, need. Are they really truly motivated in a trouble mode or a growth mode? And now that we had this discussion, you're setting up that first conversation. And this is where you begin to do the deeper dive. And the concept here is the understanding, the asks of, why they do and what if. Um, the depth of your discovery defines the strength of your proposal. This is the area where you look to ask and find the information, but this is also an opportunity where you could put landmines in for your competitors. And I would urge you when you get this information, if you're walking away from a meeting, what do you do with those notes that you've captured or that information you've captured? Is it written on the back of a business card? Is it in your notebook, your appointment book? And if you do, what are you doing to capture that so you can go back and reflect on your findings? Or do you have a process that you're assessing and gathering it because like if you get these questions answered and you could articulate it, you could go back. What does that framework look like for you? And again, I'm a big believer if you're using spreadsheets or working out of your notebook, but you're not capturing in a formal process, we really should discuss that because this has an impact on those things that you have to recall later on when you're putting that proposal together, that quote.
I have a question on that slide, Mike, sorry. So, the question is, can you give us an example of why, a question that really unlocks a deal for you and how many layers of why do you typically go through before you hit that real business impact for that business?
So I know this might sound cheeky, but I strongly believe that you need to ask at least five different levels of why, and sometimes as many as seven to really get to that level of depth. I think it's human nature to be a little bit guarded and protected, and you're not going to get the answer in the first one or two questions. And you may need to ask the same question in a couple of different ways in order to bring it out from, the audience that you're speaking with to get that information. You know, and then when you understand the why, I think you really need to also understand what if or what is the impact. Do they understand and appreciate the impact of what takes place from that problem or that situation or that opportunity that, hey, if they invested, look at the amazing growth opportunities. That, impact has a very positive connotation as well. But you really need to ask those questions on the why behind it and what are the motivations behind it. And that's that probing. And then when they start answering the questions, I really just want to emphasize a very key skill, and it's a big challenge, but it's called active listening and practice golden silence, which is simply, pause and be quiet before you want to ask the next question or you want to interject your idea. Let that person speak out. Elizabeth, go ahead. The floor is yours. I saw the raised hand.
You actually just answered my question. I was like, how do you get people to talk? Because a lot of times it feels like I'm at the doctor's office and I'm working with my mother who doesn't want to tell the doctor anything in case he figures out what she needs and charges her money. And so I guess the silence and the just keep probing and giving time is the answer to that. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. Golden silence is probably one of the hardest traits for most people, at least in sales, to practice because we're either too busy listening because we want to say something, or we're just pressed for time. Someone put the situation where like, hey, I only have a brief moment, and you're trying to fit everything in, and you need to kind of control the cadence of that sales exchange with that person. But asking questions is the most powerful part, and having that homework that you've done with the confirmation questions on what is it that you understand so they truly have that trust that you did your homework with them. And when you capture that information and you come back the next time you talk to them, your credibility increases and the trust level increases incredibly more than just talking off the top, but having something intentionally put together in writing, written out. Hey, here's my agenda, and here's what I'd like to confirm. The next area I'd like to discuss here is the challenge that we have, which is the tech speak trap. And this is where many times I could tell you because I do not have the level of technical background. That's not the role that I play in the organization. So it's very easy for me to avoid tech talk, but it's yet a very big challenge for me to talk tech if I need to go deep and I have to bring in the right subject matter expert. And for those people that have the balance, I mean, my gosh, that's money in this industry. And I think it's perfectly fine to admit what you are good at and either come up with a game plan to either train yourself or bring the right resource at the right time. But when people are at that tech, make sure you understand what are you helping them fix. And it's probably not a widget, a digit, or something in a component, but it's a business challenge. What do they want to avoid or accomplish? You're never really going to hear someone say, gosh, I really want to accomplish because I can't wait to put in this malware or ransomware. And, it's usually what are they doing as far as growing their business, increasing headcount, acquiring a new client, and those are the areas you have to think about and then tie that to what you're doing and why. And I would say that when you're looking at impact, most business owners are looking, they need to understand what is the compliance and risk reduction, from that impact, time, money, downtime, not being able to compete for an opportunity because they're not compliant. Um, but I would ask you to do a homework assignment and say, what is your top IT speak phrase? And then what are those ones that you find that stump your conversation that you feel you need to go back or it holds somebody off or deters somebody? And then how would you make it easier and more value focused? And that leads me to these four areas that most business people like yourself think about instinctively, but maybe not have been deliberate in articulating it when you're talking tech speak. But are you protecting the business? Are you minimizing the risk and ensuring continuity? Right? Keeping the lights on, keeping it able to go forward. Are you driving efficiency and productivity? What are you doing to optimize your time and your people? And in cost management and ROI, how are you maximizing the money spent? And then the final area I put here is just the enabling growth and innovation. How are you supporting future business? So protect the base and growing your business are the two key areas all of us want to achieve. But how do we relate that to what you're doing with the tech? And how do you put that back? And what I would offer, just as a workshop exercise for yourself, because you know your business, you know the more frequent technical challenges that you come across is on the left-hand side, I would do a Ben Franklin, just like you see on the graphic up in the upper left-hand side. And I would take a look and say, what are the most frequent IT tech things that you do or that you are trying to explain on the left-hand side? And then on the right-hand side, I would take a look and see, can we maybe perhaps equate that to one of those four areas that are most commonly interested by business owners like yourself that don't understand the technical component of what you're trying to achieve? And if you don't mind me saying this, and I would say is if you hit a brain cramp and you just can't think of a way to articulate it, we all have a friend that we have access to. We have a couple of friends that we have access to that we could ask questions any time of day or night or on the weekend or holiday. And that might be one of our AI friends. I'm not promoting one over the other, but every now and then I talk to a friend named Gemini or another one called ChatGPT, and I'll throw it in there and I'll put in the prompt and say, hey, as a top performing business development person in the tech space or as a leading MSP servicing this industry, I've got this client and here's a technical. How could I equate with this title of this persona and this level of influence that they would be able to appreciate the value of what I'm trying to offer? And you may find some word choice that's more comfortable for you that becomes more natural and authentic and builds that trust. So building on that, we had that question of, how do you get people to talk and how do you get them to come out and speak? It is a challenge, right? Sometimes I'm sure many of you feel like you're talking to someone and you may own a restaurant and someone came in that already ate a big meal, they're full, but they just came to sat down there to take up space in your restaurant and be annoying, right? And you're like, why are you here? You're not hungry and you're not ordering off the menu. Uh, you might have that. Uh, so that was me doing a little bit of levity to it. But on the left here, what you'll see on this graphic is this green sheet thing that I was talking about in session one with Ready, which is that Miller-Hyman format. This is coming up with that intentional design of like, how do you organize your discussion before you have it? How do you really come about with your strategy before you have it? How do you organize it or equip yourself before you deploy yourself to get engaged? And I would gather that some of you do this so fast and instinctively that it takes more time to slow down to think about it than to execute. But let's challenge ourselves and be deliberate so we can be intentional with their questions that we're designing to move and advance the sales process. And what we're trying to do is really understand these five pieces of information. What do they want to fix, avoid, or accomplish? What is the business result that we're trying to help them achieve? Have them articulated. That business result has to be measured. Like, I want to grow my business by X, or I want to get X amount of clients, or I want to earn, I want to increase our revenue by X from this area of our business. And then the personal win is what does it mean to them if they achieve this business result? How does that affect them personally? Does it help them get a promotion? Does it put them in a better position? Do they get a chance to go on a vacation? Does it allow them to just relax on the weekend and not think about problems and they could do something else with their time than be doing something in the business? But there's something personal, sometimes intangible, that the business result doesn't really speak to, but you know that it's that personal motivation to want to achieve that result. And if there's any question about that, I would love to hear your input on this slide because we're going to get into different kinds of questions you would ask for a confirmation, new and attitudinal, but I want to make sure this concept is understood. And if you have any questions, as always, I welcome and open the door, or the microphone rather, to anybody who'd like to engage.
And
So with the 10 minutes remaining, again, another set of eye charts I want to share with you, and you could go ahead and take a look at this. But when you look at confirmation questions, this is where you have an assumption or you already have knowledge before, or maybe you met with them last time and you just want to confirm and understand, and you want to ensure accuracy of what the priorities are. And what I provided here is an example of, you want to recap a pain point that they discuss, a goal or priority, or the impact. And here are just some examples of verbiage that I put together for you to consider. And you could take this and put it into your own imprimatur and how it's comfortable on your everyday speak with your clients. New information questions. This is where you really get into like the 7 whys or the 5 whys, depending on how forthright you may be in getting this. Is where you get really uncover deeper insights into hidden needs. And it's human nature, folks. I mean, some people just, until there's like a level of trust and an understanding, people may be reluctant. But I put 4 examples in here that you really want to understand. And if you remember, like how you qualify the customer up front to know whether you spend your time, you're really digging into this just a little bit deeper and understanding what their process and the impact. Do you really understand who the influences are in the politics in the organization? What other priorities are you competing against? Do they have budget and resource? They could come up with a great idea, but they have the people in place to do it, or do you need to bring in more help? And what's their vision and strategy, looking ahead? The final section here is attitudinal questions. This is where you understand the feeling, the motivation, or the emotion. This is where there's not always like that tangible, but you really understand what the personal win is behind it. And you get a real feel. Are they frustrated? Leaning towards that trouble mode? Are they in a growth mode where they really want to make a priority and move forward on something? Or maybe you're dealing with someone who's resistant to change, and either A, they need more information to feel comfortable about your solution, or they need to get an understanding of what the industry is driving and they don't want to be left behind. And the other one is also understanding the level of confidence or risk. So again, these are the more common attitudinal questions that I took. There are many more, and it could be very client specific, but I wanted to at least give a template for something to build on. So now that we've come up with the prospecting and the qualifying and the various questions, it's the next part, which is speaking with impact and taking that, translating tech to trust. And I know this is redundant to a degree because I brought this up earlier, but I wanted to bring this as just another example that um, business owners need to know that you're there to help them protect their revenue, reputation, and resilience. You're there to help them grow. And this was just an example here that I took from some of my conversations and research, but you had someone, come up with this example, we implement the next gen EDR for endpoint security. And maybe instead of that, for depending on if you're talking to a non-technical but more of a business leader, you're ensuring that the sensitive data isn't going to be breached, it'll be defended, and you'll know that 24/7, holidays, weekends, what have you, that you've got them covered. and that you're going to minimize their financial exposure based on that breach. And an example I want to offer is in our world when we're talking about compliance, especially with our cyber tackle box, what we find is compliance is often that conduit between technical and the business result and the reason why. People are buying cybersecurity insurance policies, but they really don't understand the conduit between the why. And this helps with the tech speak. So again, I offer and deploy like, what is the mechanism that we have here that we could help bridge the gap for them? Do they understand the value and what they're trying to avoid? So leaving names and experiences out and knowing you have a limited time, we had a little bit of a fire on Monday with someone who was in incredible trouble mode. And to the example that I believe Ann brought up earlier, they have an MSP that they didn't feel they were getting any value from. And the only thing they could think about is, gosh, I'm paying this person all this money and they want me to, do X, Y, Z, and they didn't understand the value. Well, after speaking with the account, we found that there's a person there that had greater understanding, very much more technical prowess, and had influence over this person that was in a great deal of trouble mode and frustration. And with the feel, felt, found, we were able to let them know, like, yeah, you're in this situation. Let's help you out. Where do you want to go? And let's come up with an action plan together. Let me get together and do some more assessment, and we'll have a series of questions to understand better and then come up with a solution for you. So when we look at these two stages that we covered in stage one and stage two, this is a modest recap where to be successful, you need a balance of consistency of inbound and outbound activity. And I just want to take this opportunity for those folks that you're probably doing this, but I want to be intentional about labeling it. The inbound is where you're filling the funnel and your top line prospecting, your stage one. Either you're doing some sort of content marketing and you're addressing fears, gaps, industry changes. Maybe like this one, what we're doing here today, you're offering informational webinars and you're sharing knowledge and earning credibility as we're trying to do with you. And also you're maybe optimizing search engine and social media to be more findable when someone is looking for a solution or has a question. And then on the outbound, this is where it is target engagement and qualification. This is the part where I'm hoping in the last 30 minutes or so that we were able to give you some guidance, but it's that strategic networking and referral partnerships. It's sending out the personal email. It's getting in front of them and having that one-on-one conversation and really understanding, what is their needs, what is their budget, where are they as far as their attitude towards it, and then do they have the right authority and what's their timing? So as we start winding down here, we have covered and you have mastered the top three stages. What the funnel provides, the roadmap in stages one, two, and three, identifying, approaching, giving the qualifying, and then getting to the assessment. Um, Looking at some precision marketing and leveraging that in order to get some inbound marketing and also outbound engagement for additional qualifying and prospecting. And then maybe evaluating some of the language that you're using to be more business focused where appropriate to earn, trust and authority. And next week we're going to get together, the 17th for the third and final, which is our sell stage. This is where we get into stages 4 through 7. And I'd like to thank you for your time and also offer that if there's any topics here of interest that you'd like to expand on or just have a creative conversation that's specific to you and your business, my contact information is above here, and please be aware I'll probably reach out to you. I'm very sincere and committed about your success, and I'm very appreciative that you took time out to invest in your business with the knowledge that I've had over the years, and hopefully put it together in a package that was able for you to just appreciate and apply. And together, let's unite and see what we could empower and conquer together. And thank you for your time. And if there's any additional questions or comments, I'm going to stay on the line here and make myself available and say thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. That was very good.
Thanks, Mike.
You got it. My pleasure. Thank you again.